Hello, hello. Hope people can hear me. I'm not starting just yet. I'm just sort of checking in early just to check that microphones and everything are working. Can people hear me? Just let us know in the chat. Okay, that's great. Perfect. There is a slight delay on YouTube between when I'm actually saying this and when it's coming through to you. So if I don't respond immediately to what you're saying in the chat, it's simply because of that slight buffer. That's great. Perfect. Like I said, I will wait just a couple of minutes until sort of past until I get started. I'm delighted to see so many people here, especially on a Friday afternoon. I hope everyone's well. Wherever they are. Where are you all coming in from? I know a few people from different places. I can see someone from Indonesia who I'm familiar with, but it'd be good to know where the rest of you are beaming in from. Do let us know. Hebden Bridge. Dave Glitchhorn. Okay, quite a difference between those two. Harrogate, well, not far from me at all. Selby, very exotic. Gwisley. Oof, I probably said that wrong. Got Athens, hello Tina. Great to see you. Sunny Manchester, lovely. Lovely, lovely. Guiseley. Oh, Guiseley. Okay. I thought it was another place there. Guiseley. Okay. Where is Guiseley? I feel I should know this. Hi everyone, near Yeadon Airport. That's not helping, Matthew. We're just naming other places I'm not familiar with. Hi. Welcome to everyone. Devon, Leicester. Excellent. Next to uni. Hello, Sophia. Nice to have you here. Lee's home of the original Harry Ramsden. Yes, lovely. Well, it's great to have you all here. I'm going to get started now. Thank you for coming. Do please use the chat box to ask questions as I'm going through the presentation. Like I said, there is a slight delay, so if I don't get to the question immediately, then I'll try to get to it as soon as possible. If there's any sort of buffering or problems with the connection, don't worry. There will be a recording available from the same link later. Once the live stream is over, you can then access it from there. Okay. So just to introduce myself, my name's David Reed. I work at the English Language Teaching Centre at the University of Sheffield, and today I'm going to be talking about what we call sort of tools for creating flipped content. Now obviously flipped content is a term that some people are familiar with, but people may know this concept by other phrases or words. Some people use phrases like asynchronous content, online materials, interactive content. I think you would have heard at least one of those terms, and these are just referring to any materials that you have to make to supplement a course or to provide materials for students to look at before they come into the classroom, whether that's a face-to-face or an online classroom. I think over the last year or so, a lot of us have had to think of ways of creating more content for students because we don't have as much face time with them because we can't really see them online as much as we can face to face. So we're going to be looking at sort of content that we can create for students online. And you know, typical examples of this might be something simple like an online activity like this, where you're dragging a word to a picture. It might be something like this, where you are dragging a word into a space, into a sentence. It might be like a video recording of you giving a presentation, maybe in front of a PowerPoint slide, and maybe you want to add some interactivity to that, like questions or comments. Or it might be almost something more substantial, like almost like a whole lesson delivered via some sort of online format. And so these are all possible examples of what we call flipped or asynchronous or online or interactive content. I'd be interested to know from you whether this is something that you've had to try to create in the last year or so, particularly with the move to online learning, whether there's been a greater demand for creating flipped or asynchronous or online materials in your institution or just for your individual classes or students. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to have a look at a variety of tools that can be used to create interactive content or flipped content, and we're going to look at it 6. We're going to look at one called WordWall, one called Edpuzzle, one called Genially, one called H5P, one called Articulate Storyline, and the final one called Xerte. Okay, and these are all very different types of tools, and we're going to look at them from different perspectives. Particularly, we're going to look at some of the key features that they have. We're also going to look at the cost of them, what's the price of them, because that's obviously an important consideration. And also a little bit about the kind of learning curve. How difficult are these tools to actually use? And I'll try to sort of show some examples of them and show actually trying to sort of put content together using a few of these tools. And hopefully these things can help you decide whether this is going to be appropriate for you or your centre. Okay, but we're going to make a start with a really sort of simple tool, but a really effective one called WordWall. And WordWall is an online tool that you can use to create content. Now, thinking about some of its key features, one of the great things about WordWall is you can create quite a wide range of activity types for students to engage with. I think it was originally perhaps designed more for sort of primary, secondary schools, but it's perfectly usable with adults at university. A lot of the activities are quite interactive and engaging, and they seem to find them quite fun. Lots of different examples, and you can sort of see some there. Simple sort of quiz type examples where you've got multiple choice. The style there you can see is somewhat more for children, but you can easily adapt that or change the style so it's more adult or more sort of serious looking. Another one might be a simple one like a sort of unjumbling a sentence. This might be a typical thing we'd want to do as EAP or EFL teachers, depending what we are. Getting students to put words in a sentence in the correct order. And again, nice little task for them to do. It might be something like labeling a diagram. Here we can see it's sort of a world map, and people have got to label the oceans on there, but you could obviously from a language point of view see it as labeling parts of the body or parts of a car or names of countries or etc. etc. So lots of different activity types, and there's lots of other nice features of WordWall as well. One of them is that you can actually sort of print out these activities so that you could use them in a face-to-face context, or if you wanted them to be able to sort of students to print them out and use them at home and write on them if they don't have good connections, then it's possible to do that. And that makes it a very versatile tool in that sense. The other nice thing is that you can generate multiple activities from just this one activity you create. So you can see there on the left we've got the labeling activity, but then on the right you can see the option to sort of switch the type of activity, so it's a different type of activity. So you can see there, if I wanted to, I could switch it to become an anagram activity, so that it it would take those same words, but then it would make an anagram activity where they have to kind of unscramble the individual words and find out what the correct one is. So from one activity you can generate multiple tasks. This is particularly good if you're doing some kind of revision for students. Now, sort of in terms of the cost of this, it's quite reasonable. There is a free tier, as most of these tools tend to have kind of a free tier that you can use. And the free and they sort of base their cost on how many types of activities you can use, how many of them you're allowed to kind of print or sort of download, and also how many actual activities are you able to create in your account to be able to share with students. And if you look here, the basic one, which is free, is fairly basic, but you just still have access to 18 different activities. You can't print any, unfortunately, on the basic plan, and you can only make 5 different activities to share with students, so quite limited. So the free one is perhaps not great, but at the same time the paid versions are not massively expensive. Even the sort of standard and the pro, both of them are reasonably cheap. We're looking at sort of £3.60 or £5.40 a month. So you're looking at sort of £40-50 a year. That's probably sort of $60-70 in other money. And there you get access to more activities, ability to print, and also unlimited resources to create. And obviously, if you're doing this from an institution, maybe your school can pay for one account for someone or multiple people to use, or you can find some kind of funding to pay for that. So reasonably cheap, and there is a kind of a school model as well. So if a school wants to buy multiple accounts, maybe, then there is a model for paying via a school. In terms of learning curve, I've done it on this kind of star system, going from sort of difficult to easy, and Wordwall, I think, is an incredibly simple tool to use, very user friendly, very what you see is what you get, particularly when you're creating the content. Let's see if I can just sort of pull that up and you can see an example of this. So I'm just going to show you an example of creating an activity in Wordwall. Let me just do this. Create activity, let's choose one. So here, for example, I'm creating just a very basic multiple choice. Let's just call it a capitals quiz. And where is Paris? It's very, very simple to create. And all of them are like this, really. They're very, very simple. You just indicate the correct answer. You can also add pictures, and it's very easy to kind of search for pictures, find a nice picture to insert. There you go. And then once you've done that, you can just click done. You can add multiple questions, obviously, to the quiz there. If I just save that a second. And there we go, that quiz is there. You can see it looks nice visual thing. I can then share that if I wish. Need to make that public. Let's go publish. And there we go, we've got that nice link there. Pop that into the chat, and hopefully people will be able to then sort of interact with that. Okay, so again, Wordwall, a really nice little tool, very simple to use, not too expensive. And I think a really nice one to, it can be used with kids and adults, and there's a nice wide range of activities that are appropriate for all of them. Okay, we're going to move on to our second tool now, and this is one which is called Edpuzzle. And Edpuzzle really has just one feature, and that's the feature of sort of creating quizzes for videos. But I think that's incredibly useful simply because certainly at the moment with people teaching online, a lot of people are kind of recording videos, maybe of themselves talking over PowerPoints, etc. So being able to perhaps create questions that go over the top of that or accompany that video can be extremely useful. And you can see here an example. There's the video on the left, and then on the right there is the multiple choice question. It's a fairly limited number of question types. I think you've got multiple choice, you've got sort of an open-ended one or sort of a typing question. You could also just write a note on the screen where there's no answer necessarily, but sort of alerts the student to something on the screen. What's good about it is that Edpuzzle is that there is a large amount of content that has already been created within Edpuzzle. Lots of people have submitted their own videos and quizzes to it, so you can search and find something that other people have created, and then edit it if you wish, or you can make your own. And there's a whole range of sources for videos, so things like National Geographic or YouTube or TED Talks or things like that. So it's very easy to sort of pull in videos, or you can upload your own and then create quiz questions on top of that. It's also possible to send your video to different places. One obvious place that they support is Google Classroom, and I know a lot of people, particularly teaching in sort of primaries and secondary school, use Google Classroom as their main sort of virtual learning environment, and you can set an Edpuzzle video directly from Edpuzzle into Google Classroom as an assignment, with due dates and all the usual stuff as well. So there's a nice integration between Edpuzzle and Google Classroom. The cost is not too expensive to use Edpuzzle. Like most of these, there is a free basic model, and then there are some sort of paid models where you get additional benefits. But actually, the free model on Edpuzzle is pretty good. You get storage space for 20 different videos. So you can make 20 different videos and assign them to different students or classes, which is a reasonable amount, and you get a lot of other features there on top of that, as well as analytics. If your students engage with the video, you can see what they've done, and you get access to basically the whole library of videos that they have. In terms of learning curve, it's reasonably simple to use. I wouldn't say it's as easy as something like Wordwall. I think particularly the sharing to your students or assigning it to your students can be a little bit confusing. It's not always clear exactly how you get your video to your students, and there's multiple steps to that, which causes a little bit of confusion. But actually creating the video and creating the sort of questions that go together with it is reasonably simple. Okay, we're going to look at the next one now, which is Genially. And Genially is a relatively new tool which allows us really to create interactive presentations, particularly quite visually stunning and visually well designed interactive presentations. So to a certain degree, this does rely on the quality of the person creating it. If they've got a nice visual flair, then it could be nice, but they do have quite a lot of nice templates that you can use which give it a sort of an organic sort of visual flair as well. And you can see this particular person, going with a Pokemon theme, has created some very nice looking content for the students. These are really more like like I say, more like a PowerPoint presentation, but with interactive elements that students can click on, and there might be sort of possible quizzes or things that pop up from the information on the screen. They do have a really good sort of templates that you can utilize. So you can, when you go to make some content, normally there will be a useful guide or video to look at, but also they'll have a variety of sort of pre-existing templates or content that other people have used that you can use and then sort of edit to make it appropriate for you. again, they've got a pretty generous free plan. So, for example, the free plan allows you to have unlimited creations, unlimited views, and also they've got free templates and resources. So that's a fairly robust free plan for people to use. There's really no limits on it. Sort of the only limits really come in comparison with some of the paid plans, which give you some additional options like viewing something offline, so students can look at it when they're not connected. They can be downloaded as PDFs or JPEGs, and other things like watermarks and stuff like that. But again, free plan is pretty good. Learning curve, it was one of these things that I thought would be a lot easier to use than it actually was. When I tried to put something together in Genially, it took me a lot longer than I anticipated. It had this very sort of fresh, modern look to it, but the actual use of it and trying to create something on it is a little bit confusing. I think if we're used to using things like PowerPoint or Google Slides or other presentation software, the sort of the layout and design of Genially is sort of a little bit different. Let me just see if I can pull that up and let you see. Here I am sort of within Genially, and I'm just going to create something. You can say the focus is on sort of presentations and infographics and charts and these sort of things. So it's probably better for certain types of content than others. But if I just start with a presentation, I won't make a full presentation, but just to give you an idea of what this looks like. Just select all these. So you see here, we've got this sort of basic thing, very similar to PowerPoint. You can kind of move things around. It is slightly different. You've got all these sort of resources on the left to work with. It's not always clear exactly what all the resources do. Some of the sort of the icons are a little bit confusing, and what exactly they do is a little bit confusing. So it does take a little bit of time to get to grips with what you need to do to make your content look interesting and to give it interactivity. Not saying it's impossible to learn, it just takes a bit of time and a bit longer than I imagined, and if you've got to do something quite quickly, I'm not sure Genially is something you'd want to use. Okay, just to come back to the presentation. So moving away now from Genially to the next thing, which is H5P, and H5P is a strangely named tool, but I think it was originally made by the Norwegian Army, but then later was made sort of open source, or someone got hold of it and made it commercially available. Just before I go on, I just saw a question from Hania in the thing. You can use it live, and I have seen people, Hania, use it live quite effectively, and it's visually quite stunning. So it can be used both live and sort of asynchronously with students. So coming back to H5P, key features of H5P. It's got a really large range of what we call sort of interaction types. I've shown a picture there of a few of those, but there's a much wider range than the ones I'm able to put in there. And it's really a huge range for you to access. And I'll just sort of show a few examples there. Some of these we saw before, like a simple drag and drop activity where you're dragging things to a picture. Dragging a word to a space. There's also nice things like audio recorders, so students can record their voice and download it. You can give them some words, for example, to listen to and then respond to, and they can try to copy that. They also have quite a nice dictation feature where you can record something and they have to listen and write down what it is. And the other nice thing about H5P is that it's very portable, very flexible. And you can use it in many different places, particularly if you use any kind of virtual learning environment like Moodle or Blackboard or Canvas. There are ways that it can be used within that, sort of directly within Moodle or Blackboard. I think your university or your institution need to kind of enable it within it, but then it will become a feature directly within it, and you can create content from within your virtual learning environment. Also, if you've got a website like WordPress, if you've got a website that uses WordPress, then you can also use H5P directly, or you can share H5P content as a link. So if you just want to copy a link and share it with someone so they can directly interact with that. Now, if you're going to use H5P with any of these kind of websites or VLEs, then it's probably not going to cost anything other, obviously, than the cost of having Moodle or Blackboard or Canvas or a WordPress website. It's just what we call a plugin that goes into those sites, and it should be free. However, if you do want to just to be able to create H5P content by yourself and just share it as a link, then it gets a little bit more expensive, and it's sometimes difficult to find the pricing information on their website. But if you have a look there, you can see their sort of smallest package works out at $57 per month or $570 per month, and that gives you sort of 3 emails that can access and create content. That's quite expensive. It's very good, H5P, and what you can create with it is very, very good. But it is quite expensive if you're perhaps trying to do this by yourself and wanting to create content just as links to share with people. The learning curve can be a little steep with H5P as well. It doesn't really have that, what you see is what you get quality. Often when you're editing content, it looks nothing like what the final product is going to look like. Let me just kind of show you an example here. So if I go to add some content here, one second. So you can see there's a whole list of the different types of content that I can create. If I just do a simple one, which is just sort of dragging words into a text. Okay, use that one. Again, it'd be nice if it was a bit more visual, but essentially you'll just get a text box like this. It does tell you how to kind of write it, but something like that. And all you do is you put kind of asterisk around the thing, which would go there. Just give it a title. Save that for a second. And you can see now that gets dragged into there, and we can check that. But obviously in the design of that, it doesn't really look very, very similar to that. So it can be a little bit confusing when you're creating content. A lot of it is like that. It doesn't take that long to learn. It's just slightly quirky and it's not very visual. So for people who like that kind of visual element to the design, H5P may not be the best tool for them. Okay, let's just come back to our presentation. So that's H5P. Up to now, all of these tools have been web-based, which means they're all accessed via a browser. And normally you need an internet connection to use them. The next one is slightly different. This is something which is called Articulate Storyline, and Articulate Storyline is what we call an authoring tool or authoring software. And what we mean by that is that this is rather like PowerPoint or a tool like that. It's something that's downloaded to your computer, where you create it, and later you are able to upload it online somewhere, but the actual creation takes place within a software program which is installed on your computer. And it is really used for creating quite sort of complex content. You can see here it looks very, very similar to something like PowerPoint. That's a nice, quite good starting point for most people, because most people are familiar with that layout and that design. But obviously what you can add to that is all kinds of interactivities, buttons to press, quizzes, these kinds of things. And you can see an example there of content that's been created by this. It's likely with Storyline the content is going to be quite substantial, almost like a sort of a whole lesson with multiple slides or multiple pages for them to work through with a menu that they can go down as well. You can see here other examples. You can embed videos and lots of other things within the content. Another really nice feature of it, and this is part of the package when you buy it, is that you can upload any content you create, even if you haven't finished it, so that other people can make comments on it. So rather like side comments in Microsoft Word or Google Documents or something like that, you can upload a version of it, a draft version of your content, and if it's something that needs to be reviewed or looked at, then other people can look at it and make comments, and that's really, really useful. Another really useful feature is that you can send any content you create to your virtual learning environment or your learning management system for tracking. I think this is important in certain places, particularly at university, if you need to keep an eye on, have students completed the work, have they done the content, maybe if the content is an integrated and integral part of their course that they have to complete, then you can look and see whether they've done it. It can be very simple on a have they done it or have they not basis, but you can also drill down in quite some detail to see what aspects of the content they've looked at and what they haven't. If there's any quizzes, then you can see scores they get for them and things like that. So they're very rich in providing data for your institution. Cost, as you might expect for something like this, like I said, it is quite complex, quite sophisticated software. It is quite expensive. It's probably not something you're going to pay for individually. It's probably something you're going to be paying for through your institution or as part of some sort of institutional plan. I'm looking at the academic pricing here, so this means anyone who's working at an institution like a school or a university, and there for one user it's $499, or there is like a team option which is $649, which allows that who uses it to be changed, their email to be changed. Just looking at a question from Phil. Well, Phil, you asked a question about is Storyline similar to other Articulate packages. I think Storyline is one feature of what's called Articulate 360. Articulate 360 is the sort of the package you buy, but you get Storyline, which is the software within that. So you get Storyline, which is this software, a bit like PowerPoint, Rise, which is a kind of a web-based tool, and also you get Review, which is the ability to comment on content that's been created. So Articulate 360 is really the package you buy, and you get Storyline, Rise, and I think this sort of review function within that package. Like I said, for that money, it's not cheap, but you do get quite a lot. You get a variety of apps and tools and support as well, and you get the ability to review your content. You get lots of what we call stock content. So one thing we often need is things like free images, and Articulate as part of your subscription. You get millions of free to use images and templates. Also, they do run a lot of seminars and webinars that you can attend to improve your use of the tools that they have. And the other thing that's really impressive about Articulate and the package they provide is they have tremendous sort of support, either support when you contact them and they will help you, but they also have a very sort of good online community which has excellent forums and discussions and examples and templates that you can download. It's a very sort of professional company, but obviously with that does come cost. The learning curve, I put it an 8, which suggests it's reasonably simple. It is quite complex software to use, but I think that the amount of support they give you does make it easier to learn it. And also I think the way that it's designed is very similar to tools that we're all familiar with, like PowerPoint or Google Slides or Keynote. So the initial barrier to entry is a little bit lower than some of these other tools. Okay, so that's Articulate Storyline. Now the last one I'm going to talk about is one called Xerte. I'll leave this to the end, and I'll just mention this sort of briefly, because not everyone would necessarily be able to access this. Now Xerte has some similarity to the tool we just looked at, which is Storyline. And this is, but instead of it being on your computer, this is a web-based authoring tool, so you're accessing it through the internet. And again, it's a tool you'll use to create perhaps multiple slides, almost like perhaps a whole lesson of content. And you can see in the bottom corner there, you sort of move through a series of slides in a lesson. Here you can see an example of some flashcards, for example. But there's a whole variety of other types of content here. You've got multiple choice questions and a lot of the other types of content we've been looking at, gap filling activities, images with little sort of interactive elements on top of it. They've got quite a wide range of activities that can be engaged with. Now, in terms of cost, Xerte is 100% free. There's never really a cost to it, and you can see it says high quality free software. But it's what's also described as open source software. Now, what this means is you can't just go online, go to Xerte and sign up and start using the tools that they have. Unfortunately, it's something that has to be kind of installed somewhere. So it's likely that you're going to need some IT support or technical help to be able to do this. You would also need some space on the web where you could then install the Xerte for you then to be able to use. So there's quite a technical barrier to using it. And it says in their sort of questions, obviously you typically need a system admin or IT support to first establish the installation. So it's likely that the only way you'll probably access Xerte is through your institution, and many universities have Xerte installed somewhere on their university website, and it's likely you're able to access it through your university login. Certainly our university has it. I know many other universities have it. It's worth checking if you do work at a university to see whether they do have this, because it does allow you to create interactive content, and it can be put into your virtual learning environment, etc., etc. The only thing I would say about Xerte is that the learning curve for it is pretty steep. I don't think it was necessarily designed with a strong sort of user interface in mind. I think there is functionality there, but getting to that functionality can be a bit of a challenge because of the nature of the interface that they use. There's a lot of menus, a lot of sort of sub menus and folders and files and names, and you have to sort of drill down to find the thing that you need. There's not a very strong visual element to it, and some of the sort of instructions and some of the language they use is impenetrable and difficult to understand, and really doesn't help you to use the tool very well. To give you an example here, this was one I found which I found particularly fun, which is enter interactive text here, create a new group for each of the exercises categories and give it a unique delimiter, then mark up sections of this interactive text by surrounding it with the relevant delimiter, which, I don't know what that means, but exactly, I could probably, dig through the documentation to try to work it out. I know they did give you some examples there. Again, not quite sure if the examples are terribly helpful in terms of what it's going to do. So it is a little bit difficult to manage and difficult to use if you're not familiar with that kind of language or familiar with that kind of interface. But on the plus side, it's likely that it is free and it does allow you to create interactive activities that you can put into your virtual learning environment. So, I mean, those are the 6 tools. Very different in many ways. They do different things. You access them in different ways. Some of them you access online. Some of them you access through your computer. Some of them have to be installed somewhere for you to be able to use them. And it's really a question of which ones are going to be appropriate for you or your institution, depending on obviously the features that you need, the cost of them, and obviously the learning curve as well, because you've got to think about the technical proficiency perhaps needed to use them, and how much time do you have for someone to master this particular tool to then start creating content. I have my own personal preferences, and from those 6, the ones that sort of immediately stuck out to me are Wordwall, I think, as a really sort of low entry point for people to just get in and start creating content. I don't think you can do any better than Wordwall. The cost is quite low. There is a free version, which is pretty limited, but at the same time, the paid versions are really not expensive. And I think if you can sort of bully your institution into coughing up for a license, then please do. I think the best thing about it is there's such a quick learning curve. It's very easy to create quite a lot of content to put in front of students, and students find it really engaging and interesting. I think if you're looking to be a bit more expansive in the content you're creating, maybe you need to create sort of longer pieces of content with multiple pages, multiple slides. If you need tracking, particularly within your virtual learning environment, to identify if students have done the work or not, as a key component of a course maybe, then I think H5P and Articulate Storyline are really good tools. H5P is a little bit difficult to use, but you can learn it, and once you've learned it becomes easier. My personal preference is for Storyline, but that is it's quite expensive tool to use, and the subscription is quite expensive. I think it's only one you'd want to use really if you're planning to create quite a substantial amount of content, and you really need an effective tool to do that. So if you've got any questions about any of these tools, I'll be delighted to hear what they are. Please feel free to add your questions in the chat, and I'm happy to respond to any of these and talk about any of the tools that you are interested in. I'll be interested to know from you what the situation is in your institutions or your schools. Do you need to create a lot of online content? Is this something that's increased since COVID and since going online? It'd be great to hear from different people in different contexts what their situation is, and also perhaps which of those tools look attractive to you, or possibly you could go to your boss or your school or your university or your centre and say, look, this is something that we would like to try. It'd be interesting to hear from as many people as possible. So do put a few ideas into the chat box. Okay, Pete Saunders says, can you talk about your use of YouTube live streaming? I can do, I think. I think we've just, felt this might be an interesting way to deliver content. Rather than getting people to sign up to Zoom sessions and having to send people links and passwords and stuff. This seemed like a very low barrier to entry for people to engage with seminars or webinars. Coming back to the beginning now, obviously, hopefully some of those tools have struck you as being useful or interesting that you could possibly engage with at some point. A lot of them are free, or at least you can try them for free. Even something like Articulate Storyline has a very good 2-month free trial, so they give you quite a lot of time to get comfortable with it, and that's a completely full trial. There's no restrictions on it. Just looking at a few questions. Sharon's asked about Wordwall works in China. A very good question. Let's see if I can just do a quick, see if I can find it. I'll do a quick check on it. Just look on the internet for testing if a site is blocked in China. Okay, let's do a quick check. look. Yes, it looks like Wordwall is available in China, Sharon. So I did a quick check on a website called Comparatech, and it says in Beijing, Shenzhen, in Mongolia, Yunnan, or it's all available there, so it should be okay. Yeah, I think that, let me just share that in the chat box. That tool is quite a useful little one. If you need to check the availability of tools in China, then you can always put the URL into that website, and it will do a quick check for you. Just a couple of things. Obviously, I've talked about a lot of different tools, and I haven't necessarily given you the links to them. But what we have got is a blog, and I've written a sort of a blog post to support this webinar today. And if you go to our website, you can access that. I'll just drop actually the direct link to the blog post in the chat, and that has all of those links to all of the different tools there. There's also some examples of different types of content created by all of those tools, and you can interact with them, so you can kind of see what different sort of types of content look like, and that might be useful. So there is the blog post. And like I said, you'll have a chance to have a look at some individual pieces of content there. The other thing, if people are interested, is a bit of a plug for some of the work we do. Part of our one of the things we also offer are online courses for teachers to develop particularly kind of digital skills, and we do have some courses coming up. We've got we do a course called the Learning Technologies course in EAP. That's not specifically focusing on creating online content, but it will look at different useful tools that you can use with your students. We've got courses coming up for the summer for that. But we've also got a new course which is called Instructional Design for Language Teachers. And someone's saying, let me just see if I can grab that link again. I wonder what happened there. Share that link again. Hopefully that's come in. We'll see. So we've got a course called Instructional Design for Language Teachers, which is focusing really on the sort of theory, but mostly the practice of designing online content for your school or for your students, and making sure that the content is meeting sort of key sort of multimedia principles as well. Okay. Oh, I wonder what happened with those links. Interesting. Okay, I'll see what I can do about that in a sec. So yeah, don't worry, I'll share in a moment. Yeah, I wonder why. I shared it from a different account. I wonder if that caused some issues there. Okay. So this course is coming up in the summer. It's a 10-week course, and there's a place on our website. If you go to our website, which is www.trainingfoundry.co.uk, then you can find the link to the course on the front page, and it will give you information about when it's running. A few questions there. The instructional design course runs a few times a year. It will run, we're doing one this summer, just sort of a special possibility, just because it's a new course, so we thought we'd run immediately, but we'll also do it again in October and probably in January as well. Alison, instructional design course, does it use a certain e-learning? No, we use a variety there, just to show you, what the various possibilities are, because we appreciate that different institutions may use different packages as well. We tend to focus on a few specific ones that we at Sheffield have access to, but we will look at a range of tools that are available. Okay, I'll just see what I can do about those links. Just give us 1 second. 1 second. I'll see if I can pop those links in. But feel free to ask any more questions in the thing while I'm just tracking down these links. A minute, hopefully these links will come through. I'm just doing it from a different account here. Okay, I've shared the China link, and I'm just going to share the blog post link as well. Hopefully these are going to come through for people. Anna, you asked about, yeah, the studio is slightly different. Those tools like Engage, Quizmaker and Presenter, I think they are sort of plugins for basically PowerPoint. So it allows you to create sort of PowerPoint content which has interactive elements to it. They're quite good as well, but not quite the same as Storyline. The real, it's Articulate 360, which is the other suite, which I think is the one that's probably better. Do let us know if those other links came through in the chat and you're able to access them. Okay, well, I hope that some of that was useful, and that some of that you'll be able to take away and start to think about, well, you know, is some of this going to be helpful for me or my institution to help create online content? I know we're sort of edging back towards face-to-face teaching, but I think also we've, you know, we're at this point now where there may be sort of hybrid aspects where some of it will be online, some of it will be face-to-face. And again, I think there's going to be a greater demand for online content, and some of these tools are ones you might want to look into. Alison, you're asking about instructional design course. It's not fully online. Most of it's online. There is a 1 hour a week Zoom session that we have, but we'll try to fit that around your teaching. We'll do a survey to find a time when it's appropriate for you to come. We offer several slots during the week. Okay. All right, well, thank you so much for everyone for coming today. If you missed anything or there are any connection issues, the link to the recording will be available from the same link basically later. It just takes a bit of time to process, and then there'll be a sort of a simple YouTube video available later. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the rest of your weekend, and look out soon for more webinars. We're going to run these every couple of weeks. So we'll make them available on our website for you to see the dates and the times and the topics as well. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.